And we're live.
All right.
So welcome. Truth to Create podcast. You know what we do? We do up in this thing. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us today. I got a special guest today. So a little bit about this beautiful lady standing to the right of me. I actually met her at a Young Professional Network. At the time, I was joining a group down here in Broward County, Urban League, and Young Professional Network, and I was up in that thing, and I was presenting myself, and while I was doing my presentation, I mentioned I was a photographer, and someone said that, oh, I like photographers, and when I looked to my left, I seen a beautiful young lady, and she represented herself very well, so we had to get to know each other, and we keep it 100. Like, she really inspired me. She really did a lot of like big things in the community with sickle cell and working in the community, especially with her degrees and the achievements that she is doing in education. So today is a really big day. She is actually dropping her ebook on delegation. So she has a brand that's coming out. She's gonna actually introduce herself a little bit. So I just wanted to give her a little brief introduction. But yeah, Kyla Thorpe is in the building.
Hi, I'm Kyla. Okay, let's see. So I'm Kyla Thorpe. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Foundation for Sickle Cell Disease Research. And I created my brand called Kat.Gold Living.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm releasing my ebook literally today, focusing on delegation.
Awesome. So for those that don't know, now you know, this is my lady that I've mentioned before in my podcast. And now she's here with us. And today is a big day. She's dropping her ebook on delegation, like she mentioned. And yeah, man, so I just wanted to kind of get some backstory and kind of have her on the podcast to kind of just, get a feel of like what was her mindset, what kind of motivated her to do some of this stuff, and, get some background. So when it comes to like, you working with the Foundation of Sickle Cell and doing what you're doing over there, like, I know you initially went to school for communication, so how did you eventually get yourself into, like, working at, like, doing something like that or, working in the medical field or something like that?
Yeah, it was literally just my mom.
Hey, mom is a good motivator, right?
No, I went to UM for public relations, and so that's what my undergrad degree is in. And when I was graduating, I was just looking at all like the the job, I guess recruitment, like looking for a job type websites, and I was just kind of looking at stuff. Nothing was really catching my eye. And then around the same time, my mom had, FSCDR was not in like any full force, like so as it is today, but it was started enough so that she could offer me like an opportunity to be her public relations specialist there, and that's how I got started in 2017. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually when I started my business in 2017. That's when I actually left my job. I was working at a hospital in there saving lives, But yeah, that's when I left the job that I was doing at the time and went into full entrepreneurship. So, like, I know you have your job, but I want to kind of like jump into, because Truth to Create is really about like entrepreneurship and kind of like just, what kind of gave you that nudge, and so we get like a little. Everybody want to learn about how to choose to create. A lot of people want to start their own businesses, and they have these ideas, but it's a lot of work that goes into this, right? A lot of these ideas that we have in our head, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time and effort to get into it. So working that job, I know that feeling of like working a job 4 or 5 years and then starting your own thing as well. So tell me a little bit about KatGold. Like, what initiated KatGold? What got you started into wanting to create your own brand? And the idea of KatGold, is it the same as what you thought of it before you started to like right now of like actually a couple of years of like actually doing it and launching your ebook?
Well, I started KatGold because of you. I feel like I need like people to stimulate me to do stuff. But I think, I don't know, I guess when we were just around each other, and you always would keep saying how I think and how I am is really powerful, and that people will want to learn from me and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, we just kind of, I think you were just telling me to start, or I should, or at least encouraging me, not like forcing me, but just like that you could do it if you want to. And yeah, I don't know. It wasn't really like a moment. It just kind of happened slowly. Like, oh, maybe I'll do this, and just kind of keep trying things.
Where the name came from? Because you had the name already, right?
Well, that's a name I've had for life because of my dad, actually. So when I was maybe like 5 or 6, we had a Windows, I believe it was a Windows 95 computer, and I had this like Mickey Mouse game on like a CD-ROM, and I just remember like I needed to create a username, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to create, and then my dad just kind of like was like, okay, well, your initials are K-A-T, Kyla Ariana Thorpe. And then I think he just kind of stuck the gold at the end. And so that was like my original like little kid Disney username.
Okay.
So.
Dope. So when you started KatGold, what was like the beginning building of it? Like, how was that experience? Like, what was some of the first steps that you took into building like KatGold?
Working with a social media manager / she's like also like a brand developer, and just to kind of get the thoughts out of, okay, what kind of colors do I want? I really like the pink and the yellow, like magenta pink and like a nice sunny bright yellow. I like those colors. Kind of figuring out the tone of the brand. Is it more educational, but a little quirky here and there? Kind of better figuring out what the target audience is. So the audience is a lot of women who are like me, who are executives, high-level executives, manage a lot of staff, and just kind of figuring out what that means and what's connected to that. So that can also mean we're usually stretched thin, we can have our energy depleted a lot. And then, okay, what are we looking for? We want to relax more. We want to do... there's just like a lot of things attached to that type of audience. And so those are my first steps for making KatGold more tangible, was starting to define her and getting a good look for her.
Okay. And like, shout out to Marissa. I forgot the name of her company, but
On and Up Social.
Yeah, On and Up Social. So what I do, I'm a content creator, but I do a lot of collaboration. So I'm always looking for different types of people to collaborate with. So I work with a lot of social media managers. I work with copywriters. I work with web designers. I work with cinematographers, editors, photographers. Like, I collaborate in a way where we cultivate a place where it's like, okay, we perform at this high level, so that anytime we working with a client or something like that, they'll be able to use, it'll be like a one-stop shop in a way, So shout out to Marissa. I found her, and she was available to get on the phone. 'Cause I don't do all the whole texting and the whole like sometimes, and that's the thing too. What I realized with a lot of people online, a lot of business social media people online is like, there's opportunity, but you got to know it's different types of opportunities. So it's opportunities where it's a direct client, and it's an opportunity where it may be a person like me, an agent that has accounts that needs your services. I may not need your services directly, but I have a bunch of people that needs your services. So I may be able to I'm an agency, so I may be able to give you like a lot of different types of work. So I'm not like a direct client. So I like to like get on the phone with someone meet them for lunch and like, get to know them before I even have them work with any account or any client that I work with, right? So the issue that I was having a lot of times, I reached out to about 10 Instagram people, not Instagram people, but social media managers and marketers. And I reached out to like 10 of them, and out of 10 of them, out of 10, I only was able to find one, and that was Marissa. And she was able to get on the phone, give us a conversation, let her know that, what type of work we was looking to collaborate on, how much work can she handle. And, I got a good feel of like basically what she does and who would be a good referral. Cause I'm a referral source for social media managers. I don't need your services directly, but I deal with a lot of people that's in that space. So I'm a good referral source. So I was a referral source for her, and that's why after our conversation, that's why I was like, yeah, Marissa would be like a perfect fit for you. So like even with that, that's why I just wanted to just, hey, when you're online, just make yourself available to have that conversation. It's not just all text and like, oh, you don't have to be so hard, because then you're gonna miss out on opportunities like that, So yeah, so like even with that, man, I want to talk a little bit about once you was able to, get your branding together. Like I just want to take you through that story of like, you got your branding together, but you're focused on like women and like women in the C-suites or entrepreneurs and people like that. Like what was your motivation behind that? Like to find that niche and kind of like help them out.
Well, I know at least when I started as chief operating officer, I needed a lot of help and training to actually be effective. And, because I don't have like an MBA or any like business degrees or anything. So when I needed help and information, obviously I went to Google. There's a lot of articles on the Harvard Business Review, Fortune, Forbes, Business Insider, and they have a lot of, it's real information, but I almost like to think of it as like theoretical, or it's just so wordy that I would read, like literally, let's say one article on the HBR, if I printed it out on delegation, it may be like a 30-page printout, but like very dense, so detailed language and all these random definitions I didn't need. And I was just like, wow, like this information is out there, but it's just so dense. And I just didn't even know really what to make out of it. And I guess, I don't know, I didn't really focus on, both or all genders. I just was thinking about women, like what are women doing? How are we, like when we're in these kind of positions, like who are we talking to? I've had a hard time even finding other women COOs a lot of times. Just trying to figure out what can I do, like where can I find this information? And then, so at least with KatGold, I decided to make a guide that was a more simple format of, okay, this is like the steps for successful delegation. Simplified, it's not too many crazy definitions. I had taken out so many delegations, I realized I didn't even define I meant to say, I had taken out so many definitions that like my business coach, she was like, okay, Kyla, you didn't even like define anything in a basic sense. Because I was just so focused on like, no, I just want people to be able to use it, and they're not getting lost in all the sauce of the words. And I forgot what your question was.
Yeah, kind of like where you started, why you focused on that brand, why you focused on like where you was, helping women in that area of like, because you could choose anywhere that you could have choose anything to kind of like start a business on. So like starting a business and finding that focus, you know what I mean, is like it's a big task,
I know for me, it was easier for me, so I was already so overtaxed with work and everything going on. It was easy for me just to focus on stuff I was essentially already doing every day. I have other goals, like I want to have like a skincare line. I think it'd be cool to have a line of like purses or something, but those things are so far out the realm of what I do every day that I would have had to like activate my brain in such a different way that it would have just really exhausted me. So at least with let's say this first ebook, all the stuff that's in there is stuff I'm doing constantly, so it's kind of like muscle memory when I'm doing it. And I mean, I hope in the future to be in a different kind of space where I have the more. I always have a dream of being like an artist, like painting, and I still want to do that kind of stuff, but I just do not have the wherewithal to do all that right now.
What was your first experience doing delegating work? What was your first, or if you don't remember your second, your third, whatever, but what was your some of the experiences that or what was the first task that you had to delegate, if you don't remember the first task, any task that you had to delegate, and what was that experience finding somebody to delegate that task to, and how did you train somebody to be able to properly do that?
Well, I didn't know proper delegation. I just remember it was kind of like having to talk to people, which I hated because like I grew up really shy and I'm still naturally introverted. And I just remember, like, let's say in the context of work where it's like, oh, go call that client or go set up a meeting. And I remember being on the phone feeling like I was shaking and like even in college, I don't know. I did my work and I had some friends and stuff, but I just was not a social butterfly. And I think one thing I was not prepared for with work was just having to talk to people so much all the time. And I just sincerely had not been living like that before. I could go hours at a time without talking, and now it's like I talk all the time, so much that I have to carry cough drops that my body is still trying to adjust to it. And so in terms of...
What was the first, what's some of the tasks that you had to delegate at that time?
Well, no, just to start, so it was just kind of talking to people, like, oh, I need this, right? I need this document, or I was delegated to, like, oh, go set up these phone calls. I know, so, like, okay, the big thing that had happened that had kind of opened my mind was with our annual conference. I had a whole flow happening on our website where, and this is not the flow that is the example in the ebook, this is a different one, but someone had to register people, but at this point in time, it was still very manual. I did not know any automations yet, so this one was a truly manual process. So all she had to do, or what she had to do, was log in, enter in all these people's information to register them, and I think let's say I gave her, like, let's say first name, last name, emails, and whatever. But then I looked in the system, and it was just stuff was all over the place, or orders were like not complete, and I was like, oh my God, what happened? And I was, freaking out, crying, because it was just so much stuff happening that I needed to be correct, especially with the caliber of people. I was dealing with a lot of physicians, and they expect things to be proper and documented properly. And it was my mom's friend that was at our office that day, and she was like, and, I was telling her the problem, and then she was like, okay, well, how did you tell her? Like, how did you tell your assistant to enter the names? And I was like, I just told her. I just gave her the sheet. And then my mom's friend was like, okay, but you had to, okay, show me how to do it. So, I log in, I show her, and so she had completely slowed me down, and she was like, okay, we're going to click, and we were writing this out. So we're writing out, okay, click login, click dashboard, scroll down, click new order. Then it's like you're adding in the information. Then you save it a certain way. Then you send the details to the customer. There's all these like little steps and things that once it was actually written out, and then I gave that to my assistant. Oh, wow, now everything is like correct and proper. And that really, I was like, wow, like, I was so fascinated by her friend, because I was like, how do you know how to do this thing? And she was like, oh, I have an MBA, but it's pretty simple. This is like really basic. But I never had taken like a business class, so I was not familiar with all these simple little principles. And so after that day, that's what really interested me in the more of like the business world and processes and optimization. Because in that moment, I could clearly see how I was in one moment, like, okay, this was a disaster. And then once I implemented this process, then it was actually successful. And then I could feel more confident and comfortable with what was happening.
That's dope. So what I got from that is that basically before you was like, hey, can you do this for me? Just verbally like, hey, I need you to put in this information for me, first, last name, and put it in this form. And then the second way you did it was basically document like, okay, log in here. Like each movement that you did to get to that step, you documented step 1, 2, 3. Like you basically documented into a form where they could actually read. And follow it step by step and do exactly as you want. It may be something as simple as like pour out some water for me, but it's like, okay, get out of your seat, walk,
Yeah.
open the door, put the cup underneath the faucet, turn the faucet. Then turn off the faucet before the cup is filled.
Yeah.
And then bring the cup back to the table. Something like where you break down not just like saying, oh, just get me some water. It's like, no, this is like breaking it all the way down. That's like, so delegation, like from that is what I'm understanding is that for us, it could be like a photo shoot. Hey, take a picture. But it's like, no, first, make sure your SD card is formatted. Then put your SD card in the can. You know what I mean? Like all these little steps that a lot of times, little nuances that we think that, oh, somebody should just automatically know. No, it's when you're delegating a task that you always do to someone else, you got to kind of like break it down to the most simplest form.
I remember that reminded me of a professor I had at because it was a photography like 101 class, and he was telling us to go take pictures for the weekend, and we all had varying different cameras, and then when we came back to the class, I guess we were just like putting the SD cards into his computer that were like on the screen or like being, a projector. And he was looking at the files and he was like, oh my God, these are all JPEGs. And we were like, okay. And he was like, oh my God, it's like you've already baked the pie. We can't even, when we put this in Lightroom, it's already cooked. I can't even really edit this properly because none of them were raw. But I mean, we were brand new, like babies. And I was like, well, what? Why would I have put it in raw? I don't know what to do with that. And a lot of other people didn't. Yeah, everything was like JPEGs. One person had TIFF. And he was just like through with us that day. But we were all like, okay, well, sorry, professor, we didn't know to do that. How are we just going to guess at what format you want?
Yeah, and that's the thing about with photographers. We like a lot of times we just know the technical stuff. We don't learn the actual business stuff, like breaking it down to the simple format. Like, listen, you always shoot in RAW. Why do you shoot in RAW? You have reasons to shoot in RAW, and you have reasons to shoot in JPEG because we do shoot in JPEG as well. We shoot in JPEG when we need to have a fast turnaround time, when we're shooting for a news outlet, and like as soon as you're shooting, you have to send that content out. There's times to shoot in JPEGs, but if you're gonna be But I shoot in if it's time like that, I shoot in both RAW and JPEG. So then I can send those out really quick, but then I could also use these RAW files and then edit later on. But yeah, like that's something that's like delegation, and that's something that I even learned with you is like just kind of like breaking things down step by step to the most simplest format, so that way people can kind of understand like what to do. We can't assume that they're gonna know what to do, right?
But I will say that gets exhausting a lot of the time. Even though it's like what you're supposed to do, okay, you have to explain to people what you need. But, I mean, even now I get, like, frustrated, like, oh, God. Like, why I had to say every little thing all the time. Like, yesterday we had a new assistant. And, you know, she's great. She's smart and everything. And she's working with our new chief administration officer, who is, and I mean this respectfully, but she's a part of a different generation, right? So she just thinks of things differently. And so with my mom, the president of the company, she was like, okay, fax something. Simple. Fax it. And chief administration officer was looking for like the fax machine to fax it, but we don't have that. It's just an online portal where you scan something in, it's like you scan it, and then it's an upload and an attachment, and so even just all of that little like, I got to explain all these things, and no one's fault, and it wasn't harmful, but it's just kind of, especially when I'm in a groove of working on something, and it's like a question of like, oh, how do I can't find the fax machine, or do I put a 1, a +1? I'm like, I don't. Okay, all right, I'm gonna take a deep breath. This is how we're gonna be faxing now these days. It's.
So you got to have an SOP for fax machines, right? For faxing, and that's another thing too. Do you want to touch on like SOPs? SOP. What is a SOP, and why is a SOP important?
Well, it's the standard operating procedures.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know what that is.
I know.
A lot of people don't know what that is. I mean, I just learned what a SOP was probably like within the last year. I've heard of it, but me actually creating an SOP for the way we operate our business, I probably just started doing that probably like a year and a half ago. So.
I mean, they're important to me because they allow the company to live on its own. And a lot of times when, let's say you have a staff, it could be a staff of 5 people or 500. But with the people who are like administrators, or, the people who train people when they come in or whatever, if they're not there, or if they, they may leave a company, it's just all these other things going on. You don't want the process of the business to leave with that person, or maybe they're just not available. They could be on vacation, they could be sick, and you don't want a new hire sitting and waiting for, okay, we have to wait for that one person to return from France because they're the only one that knows how to do the fax machine. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of like, okay, the SOPs allow the business just to be the business. And so when someone comes in, and even like for me, I still have to take that step because we have a training and onboarding software. And so all I have to do is I put in the person's first name, last name, and email just to get them in that system. And then they can see all of the SOPs that we have that are relevant to their role and what they need to do. And then from there, they could just like take it away. So, and even with that, anyone in the company, or at least any administrator, can do that. All they have to do is log in the software, put in their name, send the email invite, and then bam, it's already, and it's not as though you can't talk to people after and check up, like, oh, how is this going? How is that? But it's not like when I have a new hire, okay, now let me cut out 6 hours out of my day to sit next to you and walk you through every little thing. And that person's looking over your shoulder, so they're not going to retain but so much. And if they try and write everything down in that moment, it's just going to slow down your training process altogether. So I really like having that software because it's like they can, let's say if they have kind of like a split screen going on, they can have that step-by-step, and then they're in the actual, whatever they're actually working on. And then they could just look, okay, this is how I do this is how I do that. And then, once they do it a few times, then they're not going to need that document up all the time. But at least just to get them started,
What was your first exposure? When was your first time creating an SOP, or your first exposure? Like I've been given an SOP, like if you worked at I ain't worked long at Wendy's. I would probably lasted like a week. But they did give me some kind of like breakdown of like how to, prepare the food, all that, how to make the burger. That's an SOP. Even though it's making a burger, they had an SOP on making burgers, But what was your first time actually not being given an SOP but creating one for someone else?
I would say that example of the person who needed to do those registrations for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's. It was a simple one and not more than probably 20 steps, but that was my first. Like, okay, I really have to sit and write every little thing down. And do I have? At this point, I'll even write extensive email format SOPs of, okay, we're going to do this. Like, let's say if I'm applying for sponsorships, there's a very specific way of, okay, we're going to enter, you need to enter in certain details. But it's like I have to kind of gather all of that information first to then be able to deploy it to somebody else so that they're not like, oh, Kyla, what about this? Oh, Kyla, they're asking for this. Kyla, I need that. Kyla, do you have the DUNS number? It's like, no, here's all the information. When you're filling out that sponsorship form, just look at my email. It's all in there somewhere. And then they can put it all together, and then they just send me the draft that then I can skim over, and everything looks right. And then, okay, then I just submit it, and it's ready to go. So.
Yeah. That's another thing I've been doing, too, a lot of email templates. I usually, whenever I create, because it takes me so I hate emails. I hate texting. Call me. I don't do voice notes neither. Call me. I like dialogue. But like when I actually create an email, that's really intense, and probably took me like 2-3 hours to create this email. I save it as a template, and then anytime I'm in that same situation, it could be saying thank you, it could be saying whatever. I just copy that template and slightly customize it and send it off. 'Cause I hate doing emails. It takes me so long to send one email. But yeah, that's one thing when it comes to that. But also with SOPs, even when I've done those emails, or even when I have an SOP written out, and I make like pretty slides and everything for it, sometimes they still don't get it, and that's when we start having to make like a video explaining what it is that we're doing, like video format SOPs. Have you ever done that before, and like what was your experience doing that?
That scares me, honestly, doing a video, because at least when I write it, it's like all the information is there, and I feel like that's how I most easily get out information in my head. But when it's just me sitting there staring at a camera, it's like, then I feel like I'm trying to retrieve information in my brain. Mm-hmm. Maybe if I tried it with a teleprompter, so then, I still have to type out everything first. No, yeah, I haven't tried video because I just feel like I might say a few things, but I'll forget a lot of stuff just coming up with it on the fly like that. But I know it works for people. Oh, no, wait. You know what? I guess, no, it's not an SOP. It's more training. So, like, let's say with our web developer, if I have instructions to send to him, I used to type out all of these, okay, like by email, change this, fix this, shift this up, and it was all typed. And I would notice most of the time I would send these great long emails, and then he would reply back like, oh, do you want this above this or below that? And like I said, like, just put it at the top of the page, like. But he's still like, no, but do you want it above the banner or below the banner? And then I'm like, ugh. And then at some point he started. He would, it was using, like, I think it's called Screenomatic or something. And so he would send me these link videos, which I thought were spam at first. I was like, what are you trying to send me? What is that? And I opened it, and it was like it was like a screen recording and then his voice over our website. And he was just kind of hovering and talking and, okay, I'm going to put this here and do that. So now I'm in the habit where when I have instructions for him, I just pull up our website. It's a screen. I use Vimeo Record. And I like to have my face. Some people don't, but like I like to have my face there so they could actually like see my facial expressions while I'm also talking. And so now when I have instructions, I can just kind of hover. Like I hover with my cursor. Okay, put this here, put that there. Please make this smaller. And it's like I'm like over that area that I'm talking about, so that he does not get lost. And we, like, one of our email threads is like 89 emails long in the past. This was a while ago, because we had so much back and forth. It was chaotic. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been through that too as well, working with like virtual assistants and people that's not here, but they gotta work on a project and they like going back and forth. It's like, bruh, just do this one thing, and it's like they don't get it. It's like, can you send me? I gotta make videos for every step and showing them kind of like what to do. But that's kind of like in collaboration. Everybody learn differently, and everybody taking information differently. Some people read, some people watch a video. For me, sometimes it's easier for me to watch a video. Email, I might skim through the email and just put it together and just like make the most sense of everything. But I like having it written out, especially if it's instructions for me. But I enjoy videos as well, so that way I could like see exactly what you need changed and where you want it to be changed at and stuff like that. But nah, for sure. Yeah. So like, so when we talk about delegation, man, there's just so much that goes into working with a team, and just like how many people do you work? How many people in your team that you work with right now? Like,
It ranges between, in the grand total, between 20 and 25. We have a considerable amount of on-site staff, and then there's our whole virtual world. Like, with, like, let's say our symposium, I have symposium staff, and even though our web developer, I mean, he's not like an employee of ours or something, but he's like a part of the team for me. And even working with you and then your team, it's like everyone, I still have to give instructions for emails and social media, and I wouldn't say more than 25 at this time. Yeah, it's kind of, and it can fluctuate. Sometimes I may not have to talk to our developer for 3 months because everything's fine, and then I have to re-engage him, or he'll re-engage me. He's actually good enough that he'll be like, "Oh, Kyla, I see your plugins are old and dusty. Like, can I update them?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure, that'd be great. Thank you." But yeah, I would say up to 25.
okay, so it's safe to say you might know a little bit about delegation, huh? and communicating between a big team. So on that note, I want to kind of like jump into like a part of the game where I started having to learn a little bit more of as our team began to grow, and it was just like one or two people that we was communicating with, and we had like a bigger team, and we started doing a lot more projects. Because a lot of times when we have so many projects, it could get so like, oh my gosh, where are we with this one? And then you're so focused on this project, but then this person call you about this project. Like, oh man, I was just so focused trying to knock out. Sometimes it get a little crazy in the office. And as a team leader, you gotta kind of keep some kind of organization and making sure every project is being moved along the right way. And that goes into like the project management and different tools and different things that we use to do that. And you actually introduced me to this one project management tool that is actually very useful, and it's something that we're using right now in our project management of our video production, and it's Asana. Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about Asana. Like, how did you get into that, and like how does that really like help you not only in the SOP style, but like in project management and keeping everybody accountable and keeping the project moving?
I can't even remember how I think I was probably just Googling a way to keep track of things, right? Probably I was just Googling one day, because when you have so the main powerhouse right now for us with Asana is our grants, because there's so many deliverables and reporting requirements that now I actually cannot fathom how I kept up with anything. Because like in one grant alone, you may have like 25 deliverables you're keeping up with monthly. So it's not just like reporting data, but doing the data, right? And everything that goes into it. So like if you have to report on this number, let's say a number of patients doing something a month, it's like, okay, well, you have to also plan to do that thing first to then be able to even report on it after. So there's just like so much that goes into it. And with Asana, I mean, yeah, I can I mean, but you have to really get into the task. You're not just going into Asana like, let's say if you're thinking about a car, you can't just play, okay, service the car every 6 months. I mean, you can, but so think of it as, okay, you're not just servicing the car. It's like you're putting in, maybe servicing the car is like the project, and then every little task is like, okay, we're gonna rotate the tires and change the fluids and check the brakes, and all those steps that go into servicing the car, so that once all the steps are done, then you can, it's like, okay, the project in itself is done. Everything's checked off, the car is serviced.
So that project is servicing the car.
Yeah.
And then the next project is like, for me, it's like a photo shoot. The next project is like a video production. Like each project has a bunch of tasks assigned to it.
And then subtasks. So even to say, I still think like that grant needs to be just one project. You don't want like every deliverable itself being separate projects, because that gets very messy and all over the place. So like that grant is a project, and then every deliverable is like, a task. But then within that main task, you can still put all your little subtasks, and then those can all have different little due dates. So everything, I don't know if you can make like a subtask within the subtask, but I don't do that. I have no idea actually if you can do that, because it's like if you have, it's like, like those little toys where it's like a doll within a doll and a doll within a doll. You don't want to be in that kind of a task rabbit hole, because then, especially when stuff starts getting completed, you don't know where it went. It's just, there's so many tasks now with so many different parent tasks. It's like, oh my God, what's happening? So I would say stop at, once you get to that subtask level, that's enough. Mm-hmm. If you try to get deeper and, all this nitty-gritty, just, you should be able to get it done from the project level to the subtask level. You should be able to get in everything that you need.
And that's real. So even when we talk about Asana, man, Asana has really been instrumental. And actually, you gave us a whole training on Asana. Me and my team, a whole training on Asana. So yes, she actually gave us a full-on training on Asana and how to use it. But we haven't even started. We haven't even really was able to understand it and use it in our production, whether photo shoots, whatever that we was doing, until recently, probably 6 months ago. I started working with my business coach, Mitch, out of Texas, Austin, Texas. So he really was able to break it down, because Asana is so big. I mean, it's not so big, but the things that we do is so specific. Video production is so specific. It's so much different things that you got to do. So he was able to at least give me a better understanding. So now I was able to okay, send proposal, make sure this is happening, Okay, send out creative, it was just broken down on each part. Okay, creative brief is in, a creative brief is approved. So we got to make sure these things are done before we could go into pre-production, scouting location, doing all that, script writing. I was able to understand it, but you gave me the foundation of okay, getting a better understanding of working Asana. But then with collaborating with him and seeing that he uses Asana in his whole entire system, and I'm actually going into another program with my business coach to fine tune that and even get that better. But yeah, so you kind of know, a little something, And even with, you said you have a business coach, didn't you mention that? Mm-hmm. What made you, I'm always interested to know, cause man, I never had a business, 2020 was my first time having a business coach. I had mentors, but 2020 was my first time having business coaches. And I always wonder, what initiated you getting a business coach?
I feel like I'm seeing a pattern now, because it's someone that I know from my life. So her name's Ariel Carr, and we went to together, and we were in the Eclipse Fashion Society. She was actually the president. And so, it was modeling. We did photo shoots, runway shows, all that fun stuff. And I remember, I cannot remember her exact number, but this was this would have been before 2017, before I graduated. But she was kind of like she was, or is an influencer, and at that point in time, it's like, oh, wow, you have like all these followers and likes, and it was just so cool. And at that point in time, her page was more, I would say maybe more typical influencer or traditional. And by that, I just mean, pretty pictures, nothing like really, nothing like raunchy or crazy or anything, but she had like a lot of really pretty selfies, like pretty pictures of her hair, clothes, that kind of stuff. And, so I've been following her, somewhat, not like fully kept in touch, but still follow her. We still like each other's pictures. And then maybe, was it 2 years ago, she made another account, or maybe had revamped her current account, and it was all about like growing your Instagram business and all these things. And she actually started with an ebook herself and had a lot of great sales, got really great engagement. People were like, wow, you're so helpful. And she, I bought that, and then she had another program called Socially Paid. And so I enrolled into that program, and I think it just kind of like was starting to happen. Like it was more and more, she became like my business coach. And
So it was kind of like you searching. It was kind of like you. What would even made you like start like getting the first program? Like what was that? What was that motivation? Like what was that?
Oh, because I had like KatGold was still in a like baby stage, so I did want to grow and get my branding together and everything. And I think with her in particular, being that I had known her, in real life, and then also seen what she did online, so then I was like, okay, I can trust that this is like a valid thing. Which I know there are valid people obviously online. But sometimes you just never know when you don't know a person. I mean, they could be selling something that looks pretty, legitimately looks pretty. They could even have a lot of followers, but then you buy it, and it's just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever, that was nice. Like, and with her program, the Socially Paid, we have weekly calls, and what I appreciated with her, and I don't think I expected it. It was like she was looking at my stuff from a business perspective. And I think I may have made the assumption she would probably just be like, oh, yeah, it's cute. You're doing a great job. Like, almost like she'd be like a cheerleader. And she is like that, but she'll also be like, okay, your page or your book is great or whatever, but you don't have any hyperlinks. Or you have like the icon of the Instagram.
Boy, Huff in the building.
Yeah. So what we was at?
No, but I was just saying I appreciate with her that she would look at things, or does look at things, from a business and promotional perspective. Even with my ebook now that's coming out today, like the last page I put, it was just kind of like, oh, thanks for reading. And then when she looked at it, she was like, okay, Kyla, you could upsell here, even if it's just like a waiting list for the next product or something. Like you have this last page and it's not going anywhere. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll put something together. So that's where. And then at the same time, another thing that surprised me, because I didn't know if she would have had this experience, and I didn't even pick up on it at first, but one of her first comments with my ebook, at least, she was like, okay, girl, you have like 25 different fonts running throughout this document. You need to have like your headline, your body, your subheadline font, like, just like your standard fonts. And I really actually appreciated that she also has a design eye, because not everyone has that. Not many people would even pick up on, like, oh, we had Minion Pro over here and Arial down there. Like, it was nice, and she could see the font sizes. She just was giving me a nice holistic. She gave holistic feedback on my ebook, and then we'll look at my Instagram page, like, oh, your bio needs this, and you need to do that, and
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, like business coaches for me, I always like I didn't start dealing with a business coach till 2020. I've been in business since 2017, but I've been shooting since like 2009, and I feel like I would have hit success a lot more faster if I would have got a business coach earlier on, because they like you were saying, they look at every single thing, and like everything you explain is her helping you build your system.
Oh, and then she like kind of forced me, or she did force me because, okay, when I think I started, like, was it October? I know I started the ebook in October, and around that time was when I started her socially paid program. And, we were like, it was like, okay, what are you going to sell? And so I was like, the ebook, and she was like, when are you going to release it? And I think at that point, I can imagine I did this. I think I said, like, December 31st, just kind of like a year deadline, or at least end of the year. Mm-hmm. And then, at that point, like, your birthday's October, and then it's like Thanksgiving, and then it's Christmas. So the ebook I was working on it, but I needed more time. So then it was like January, and she was like, oh, where's the ebook? And I was like, oh, I'm still working on it. And she was like, when are you going to release it? And I was like, oh, in a few months. There's no rush. And then in February of this year, she was like, okay, you need to give yourself a deadline. And I was like, oh, probably, in June. And she was like, why can't you just release it, like, now? Or what, like, because then I was like, okay, I had the ebook, and then I was thinking about all these other things. So then it's like I had to add pages, and I had to add more content, and then I would finish that. And then I was like, oh, no. But what if this person doesn't know how to do this thing? And then I had to add another page. And she was like, stop. Like, you already have enough information in there. If you need to do more, then that's another book at some time in the future. And then she was saying I need to give myself a deadline, and I needed to tell people and post about it. So I came up with, because from that point, it would have been about, 30 days. So I came up with March 25th. And so that was like the deadline I actually set. And then I told like you about it. I told my family about it. I posted it online so that, if something happened, I guess if I could not have released it, then, you could shift and adjust. But she was saying at least that way it's more, people are expecting it to come out on this date. So, okay, I need to finish it and get myself together by this date, not just still floating around the abyss. Like, oh, I'm working on it. And then I can think back, like, if I think of, like, certain movies or shows where it's focused on, like, an author, and they're always just like, oh, talking to their publisher, like, oh, I'm working on it, oh, yeah, I'm almost done with the book. And it's like they're just sitting in the forest or something, not doing anything, or just out on the town. And I feel like I kind of understand that now. I think especially as a writer, you're always like, no, I need to add another page, or no, I need to go deeper into this part of the story, or they're not going to get it. And it's at some point, from a publisher perspective, or someone who's supporting you like a coach, they're like, look, if you need to re-release it in the future, or you maybe have part 2, maybe you have a whole volume series, but you need to get this book out right now. You cannot keep just trying to rewrite the same thing 6,000 times. So,
nah, 100%. And like even pre-launching, put it out to the market so you could find out what kind of feedback you could get, because you could be in your head just going in a loop, but you're not gonna really get anywhere unless you have some actual feedback from the market that's gonna be using your products, gonna find your stuff useful. So you gotta put it out there in some kind of way, some kind of launch, some kind of pre-launch. Can't just perfection. You got to put it out there. So, okay, it may not be perfect, but at least I got some feedback. At least I got a couple of vibes and a couple of things where people enjoyed certain things that people enjoyed, and certain things that people didn't enjoy. So that way we could improve upon on the next job or the next project. And that's even what I do with video production. I'm always asking for feedback. I'm always asking to see what kind of stuff we could, what kind of feedback we could get, because that's the only way we can improve. It's not like you need that feedback, because it's the marketplace that's going to determine the value of that product. You know what I mean? Star Wars is not going to be Star Wars unless they put it out and then the fans make it Star Wars. Star Wars is not going to be as popular and it's such in demand unless the product is out and the people demand it. And the people is like, oh, I don't like that. I'm sure it's so many different Star Wars out there, but I'm sure it's one of them that is like, oh, I don't like that. I didn't like this, this, and this, and this. So they had to go back to their original concept. You know what I mean? I'm not a Star Wars person, so I don't even know, okay? But I'm just saying that as an example. It's like, I'm sure there are, because there are multiple different Star Wars that came out. And I'm sure that they probably went on volume 3 and the whole entire community of Star Wars probably went ham on them. I was like, what is this? It was going really hard. But even though it was something that was critical and it was something that was feedback, that was something that they didn't want, but that feedback was important for them to then guide themselves back to where the market wanted them to be. If that make any sense.
No, that actually makes me think of like what's been happening with our superhero movies lately. And I was not alive at this time, so I hope this is correct. But let's say if we think of like Superman's, and this is not actually specific to today's Superman, but I feel like, okay, let's say it's the 1940s or something. It's okay, there's this Superman, and then in the 60s is another actor, and this is Superman, and then it's the 80s, and then it's the 2010s. It's like different Supermans for each kind of generation sector. Mm-hmm. But now we're seeing, and he's actually, that one is actually, I think, still pretty linear. But with other superheroes, they are kind of like all bunched up in the same generation now. So like with Batman, we have Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, now Robert Pattinson, all within like the last 10 or 15 years. They're not separated by 20, 30 years between them. They're all here together. Even I heard, that's not a fact, but it's like we just had Robert Pattinson, and now Zack Snyder might redo or have some other version again with Ben Affleck. So now it's like we're moving forward with this Batman and going to now the different one, and it's like, but then they're all different though. And if I think of Spider-Man's, if we think of like maybe it was 03 or 07 with Tobey Maguire, he was a bit more boy next door, and then when we moved to Andrew Garfield, he's a bit more of like maybe like edgy and cool. Mm-hmm. So like maybe the fans are like, oh, that one was too simple. We want a more cool Spider-Man, and then we have Andrew Garfield, and then maybe Andrew was maybe too confident. So then we moved to Tom Holland, and it's like, and he's still cool, but I think he still kind of has like a boyish element to him. Mm-hmm. And so maybe I could see that when they release these people on the market, the fans are like, oh, he's too this, or she, or there's too that. And it's then they kind of keep readjusting the character. They may actually go back. They might throw all 3 of them in the movie together.
Like they did in the last one. I seen all 3 of them in one movie. You know, but that's you know, just to steer back to delegation, but that's what it takes. It takes for you to make that first SOP. It takes for you to choose to create that product and put it out into the marketplace. Because if you sit around waiting and trying to perfect it, that product would never get out. And the actual way to perfect it is to give it to the market and then receive that feedback, and then you go back to work. You know? That's the only way you do it. Like I've done a photo shoot, got feedback, and then I redone it. Each project, I got improvement, and every difficult client or everybody that I got like bad feedback from, it wasn't the end of the world. Yeah, I got bad feedback. Maybe they didn't like whatever. I actually seen one client at a networking event that didn't move forward with a project. Seen them right in there, you know, and it is what it is. It's like, okay, cool. You know, maybe I could have communicated more clear. Maybe I could have just been more stuck to my guns. But at the end of the day, from that experience, I was able to create a new SOP to make sure that don't happen again. You feel what I'm saying? So the only way I would be able to like improve our system was by going through that process. You know what I mean? Like, okay, that's why this process is in place. You know. And it just goes back to like not holding it back and putting out your ebook. And the ebook is out now, so y'all make sure y'all go cop that. You know, y'all make sure y'all go cop that, man. It's great, a lot of good information on delegation. And one of the best things about it, what I feel, is that you can actually reach out to you. You know what I mean? You can actually follow her and DM her on Instagram or on Twitter or whatever like that. You can all actually set up a call and get on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So that's Choose to Create. You know, you got anything you want to talk? You want to let the people know before we exit?
What do I want to? I would say with everything, I'm proud of myself. Actually, just thinking of like the shy girl growing up inside of me, that I never would have imagined being public facing or releasing anything or any. I've always had like a dream or a goal, but it's nice to actually be here. Like, wow, look, I released something, and now I can work on promoting, and it's like I'm in a whole different like groove of my life, and I think I'm proud of myself for that, and I hope that even that in itself could be an inspiration for young women like me, even women older than me who have the similar personality of like, oh, why bother? Why would I even do that? People are not even gonna buy it. Like, no, I mean, I guess we won't know until we try. So I tried. Here I am.
You chose to create. You ain't only tried. You made a decision, and you made a choice, and you chose to create that book and put it out to the world and add value to the world. And we appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
So Choose to Create, episode 12. We are here. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys follow us on all platforms, and make sure you follow that KatGold Living on all platforms as well. All right. Peace.